Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of In Other Words with Danielle and Zara.
So this is a podcast where we talk about a wide variety of different subjects, from climate change to self-care. So in other words, we talk about all the things.
So we are on our third and final episode of our Mental Health March series.
How exciting.
I know, and I'm super excited. Today's episode is called Here Comes the Sun.
Do-do-do-do.
Exactly. Because this is about treatment and feeling better and getting better.
Yes. So in honor of that, the brand that we want to promote today is having a relationship with God, or just having some purpose outside of like mundane life, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's really easy to get into a bad place when all you're doing is, you know, going to work or studying or whatever. You don't think about the bigger picture, and there is always a bigger picture. And you have a reason for being here.
Amen.
And that's all I have to say. Yeah.
Cool.
Wait, I just want to ask, how are you? How was your week?
It was good. This week went really quickly.
Same for
I
me,
feel like
actually.
we recorded yesterday.
I know.
And now we're recording again.
Yeah.
No, it was a good week. You're on holiday now for a week.
Yeah, if you can even call it a holiday. I literally have an essay due on Friday, so
fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the time this comes out, I would have been finished with that essay and
what a great
busy with
thought.
another one.
Yes. I know my week was good, but consumed like the rest of the world with the Meghan Markle interview.
Oh, yeah.
But
we can talk about that a bit later.
I think you need to watch the whole episode.
No,
the whole interview
I
first.
feel like I've seen enough things to have
an opinion.
Yes.
Okay.
You know?
I know. How do you do?
How do? I am doing well. I've had also like a pretty quick week, and it's nice that I am on a short little recess now. It's kind of weird because I'm on my recess like the week of the 15th to 19th of March, and that's when like everyone is starting. But I mean, I've been busy since the 1st of Feb. So it's pretty weird to think about, but it's nice to know that like things go quickly
when you're having fun.
Exactly. And I'm genuinely enjoying myself.
I'm glad.
So that's good.
Cool.
Yeah, and not too many emotional breakdowns this week. In fact, I don't even think I had one.
Even me.
That's pretty good.
I think.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. So this episode, I think we're going to break down into 3 like main sections. So if you haven't watched the first 2 episodes, please do.
Yes.
Because today we're talking about just treating mental illness, namely with therapy, medication, and then religion or spirituality or however you want to phrase that. So should we start with therapy?
All right.
What are your thoughts?
I think therapy is great. I've yet to hear someone who has gone to therapy and had a really bad experience. I'm sure there are people, because like obviously all people are flawed in some way. But I think it's really important, if you're battling with something, you don't even need to have a mental illness
100%.
to have to go to therapy. I think anyone can benefit, especially when like a lot of people I think suffer from some mild traumas or whatever from their childhoods or whatever, and things do have an impact on you that goes way back to your childhood or whatever. And I think having this therapy can really help you work through those kinds of issues. And I think from what I've seen, at least, a lot of people, we'll talk about this later, but a lot of people are not so into medication, like it kind of scares them. But I find most people are still relatively open to therapy.
Yes.
But like I said, you can literally go to therapy if you really feel like you need it. You don't need to be wanting to kill yourself to go to therapy.
Yes.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts?
I find it very helpful, because what's interesting is, I think I said this in the previous episode, but you don't just go to therapy and then like your life is fixed. But there's like something really important about talking. It's almost like you make your feelings specific and tangible when you say it out loud.
Yes.
And I also feel like we're coming out of this era where for the longest time people felt like they needed to be silent. They grew up in a home where everything stays inside the house.
Like you don't speak about it.
You don't speak about your feelings. And I think therapy is like an awesome way to speak about things that you maybe not comfortable with other people hearing just yet.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about going to see a professional is, we were talking about it the other day, where it's not like you necessarily go and you lie on a couch or you walk around your therapist's office and it's all crazy.
Yeah.
It's a very relaxed environment, and I would suggest, if you've gone for therapy and you haven't enjoyed it, it sounds so weird, but like, shop around.
Yeah, but
find
not everyone's going to be a perfect fit.
Yes, find someone you click with. But for me, what therapy does is it's designed for you to kind of work through things yourself.
Yeah.
So a therapist will very seldom say, this is what you need to do, this is the action plan. It's kind of just facilitating like your personal growth, healing agency. Like, therapists are genuinely trained to help people figure out things for themselves.
Yes, and that's great. I feel like you really need that. But how do you know? Because I mean, I've never gone for therapy, but how do you know when you found the right therapist?
The one.
Yeah, the one.
I think it's just someone with whom you feel comfortable. And like, for me, like I said last week, I just found someone who loved the Lord, but also had a medical background, and we had very much like the same views on a lot of things. So it helps to talk to someone who kind of understands you, or you feel like you're on the same page with things. But also understand that it takes like a couple of sessions to really feel comfortable. And so a lot of pastors are trained in counselling. So if you are a Christian and it's not like you have this hectic medical issue but you just need to speak, there's that option. A lot of varsities and schools have people that are specifically designed to help students, and then you get psychologists who have been designed who have been trained. So you get child psychologists, you get people that have been designed. I keep on saying design.
I know exactly what you mean, though. I'm sure everyone knows what you mean.
Yes. So basically, depending on your issue or what you want to talk about, there are different people that have been trained in specific areas.
And I mean, if you're going to a psychologist, to become a psychologist, it takes years and years of studying. You have to have a master's degree to become a clinical psychologist. It's not something that people do like an internet course on there. All of a sudden a psychologist. These are people who are genuinely prepared for these kinds of things. And and also, why do you think so many people are still hesitant to go for therapy or to go to a psychologist?
So I think I still think people are afraid of how it looks.
That's
true. So there's a stigma, but I also, and I think this is something that, like, if you're listening to this, let this be a wake-up call for you. Some people are sometimes just in denial. So they don't necessarily believe that they need help or deserve help. So I think often you'll find like a person will be in a specific stage of life. I always think the older you are, the more difficult it is to take that step, because it's almost like, let's just say you're a mom and you like, how can you have problems if you're supposed to be the one keeping it together for your kids? Or often, and this I found to be the case a lot, and I just praise the Lord for my mom, because when I had issues, like, she sent me to the people, we got the help that I needed. Whereas I've often found parents are very hesitant to send their child for counseling. And the only reason or explanation I can think in my mind is that there's some sort of like guilt, like almost like, well, my child can't be depressed and I did my best. And like, to parents I say, like, there's only so much you have control over.
Exactly.
And again, if your child is experiencing things because of exterior reasons or medical reasons, like, that's not on you. But just don't be afraid to get the help that you need, or to make way for someone to get the help they need.
And it won't reflect on you in a bad way. And I think it mostly can only benefit you. I'm sure there are stories where people have had horrible things with therapists, but I think it's also important, and like we're saying, how people are still like hesitant, and it's kind of still a taboo thing.
Yeah.
But I remember watching Annie Hall. I don't know if you've seen Annie Hall.
I've never seen.
But in that, like, I think it was made in the 90s or the 80s. I don't know. I can't remember. But in that movie, like, therapy is made out to be this really fashionable thing, you know? Like, oh, like, I just went to my therapist the weekend. And actually, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's great if therapy becomes more fashionable.
Yes,
like,
if you can talk to someone, great.
And especially, I think, now just going back to the whole gender thing, right? Women are often more in touch with their emotions, because it's also not like taboo for us to be in touch with our emotions.
No.
But for men, a lot of men feel like they have to keep it in,
Yeah.
and you can't express these emotions. But I think it's often men who need therapy the most.
Yes.
Because you kind of grown up
been told to suppress your emotions,
and that's just so unhealthy for you. So I'm telling you, men, don't be scared of going to therapy.
No.
And women like a man who is more in touch with his emotions.
It's very helpful
if you're into women, of course.
So I think therapy can be very helpful. And also remember that I think a lot of people are worried, like, ooh, I don't want my husband going to therapy because what if he badmouths me?
Oh yeah.
Like, people aren't stupid. Like, therapists most of the time have seen everything.
Yeah, they've seen worse.
So they're not going to think like, oh, this person's husband must be terrible, because they realize that they're only getting one side of the story. So yeah, I think it can be very helpful.
Agreed. All right, now on to medication. Now this, like I said, is way more taboo than therapy is. So you spoke a bit about your experience with medication. But do you have anything more to add onto it?
Yes.
What do you think about it, etc., etc.?
So I think this is why I wanted specifically to speak very in detail about my journey in the last episode with regards to medication, because as you guys would have heard, like, I've had terrible experiences with medication, and I really think that you have to have, like, it sounds so strange to say, but be dedicated to finding what's right for you. And I think people's biggest fear is, and it was mine as well, is becoming dependent on medication or medication changing you. And what a lot of people perceive antidepressants and other medication in that kind of psychiatric realm is they see it as like happy pills, like someone just needs to take their happy pill and be happy. And that's kind of what I expected it to be. It's not like that at all. So how I best explain it is, since I've been on my medication, I feel the most myself. I feel in control of my emotions. So the medication is designed to balance your hormone levels out so that you can think rationally. So I can still have bad days and good days, but I'm actually in control of my emotions, and I'm less impulsive, and my vision is less clouded. So honestly, like, I feel like, for being on meds for the past like 2.5 years, I feel in control of my emotions. I don't feel like my emotions control me.
And that's what's important.
And that's what the medication has done for me. And yes, there are certain, like, especially there's certain anxiety tablets, etc., that you're prescribed that aren't designed to be long term because they become addictive. But doctors know that,
and that's with all medication as well.
Exactly. So it's really about, like, just getting on the right medication and understanding, and that's why I hope that, like, you've listened to the last 2 episodes and have begun to understand that medication is to treat mental illness as a physical illness.
Exactly.
Like,
you know, the one thing that people often say, and I think it's a commonly held idea, and they'll say, oh, but it's all in your head. But it literally is. You know, your brain it's an organ, right?
Exactly.
Like, it is a part of your body, and it controls everything. If your brain is not healthy, how can you live a healthy life?
Exactly.
And the thing is that
Imagine me telling you it's all in your heart.
Yeah, it's
if you're about to have like
yeah,
a heart attack.
Don't worry, it's all in your heart. Duh. Like that's where it's supposed to be. But and what was I saying now? That was
I'm sorry. I just if your brain isn't healthy, if your mind isn't healthy.
Yes. And like we were saying in the first episode, if you actually go and look at brain scans of mentally ill people with certain mental illnesses, there is a clear difference between that and a healthy brain. And there's nothing shameful with wanting to treat what you have. And the reality is that some people have mental illnesses or personality disorders that will just never go away. But it's learning to deal with it.
Exactly.
And it's the same with any physical illness. Some people are born with heart defects or whatever. My lung collapsed when I was like 13, you know?
13, yeah.
So
13.
like these are things that need to be treated in order to live a healthy life. And I think another great thing about medication is that it puts you in, like you said, it helps you think rationally, but often people who are in a very bad state, that they're not going to want to go to therapy, you know? So you can say, oh, like don't take medication, just go to therapy, but often people need to be on medication to think rationally and to go to therapy.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And the thing about psychiatric drugs, like the more hectic they are, the more disciplined you have to be.
Yeah.
And so they're always going to be risks involved.
Of course.
But I think it comes down to like, my psychiatrist is amazing. And it just comes down to like listening to what your doctor says.
Yeah.
And then also just understanding, I think a lot of people feel like it's the same with, there's certain religions and stuff that don't believe in like blood transfusions or like, I hear horrible things, and I'm sorry if this offends people, but like there's certain like very hectic Christian sects that believe that like if God doesn't heal you, then you know,
then that's that.
And so they won't be treated for medication. But like science and medicine are not secular or contrary to
it's
God.
Not mutually
like,
exclusive.
The Lord has designed our body, and I'm pretty sure that all of this medication and stuff that's been designed by people, by the minds that God has given people.
Exactly.
And so I truly believe that medication can be a gift. We say this in so many episodes, but there's so many things that God has given us or opened way for that are so good. Granted, they aren't abused.
Exactly.
And I think like psychiatric drugs are one of those things. Do I believe that everyone needs to be on medication? No. And like I said, I was on antidepressants and they did the opposite because I wasn't being treated for the right thing.
Exactly.
So if someone gets put on an antidepressant and they still don't feel better, chances are
it's not the right thing for them. But it doesn't mean that all medication is bad.
Yeah.
But now, seeing as you are on medication and you're also a Christian, like how has that felt? Have you ever felt like judged or whatever for, I don't know how much you speak to people about it.
Yes, I mean,
but how does it feel for you hearing people, and like I know like we know people who don't necessarily believe in medication, but like how does that feel for you?
So because it's been such a long journey, and like I've really, like the Lord's given me so much peace, and like I said, I am just the best version of myself being on medication. That for me, I've come to peace with it.
Yes.
But in the beginning, I spoke about that a lot in the last episode. It was like a real struggle for me. But I don't feel like I'm a bad Christian. And if people think differently, chances are they've just never been in the place where they've needed it. You know what I mean? And to them I say, I'm very glad that you never had to be in that space. But I do not think that it undermines someone's faith.
Yeah, completely. And why do you think that so many Christians are anti-medication? And also, why do you think the church as a whole doesn't really deal with mental illness?
I think it's just a lack of understanding that mental illness is a real thing, and we've now established that it is a real thing. But I think people are hesitant to talk about mental health because these negative emotions are often associated with a lack of faith.
Yeah.
But like in searching like scripture, that is the complete opposite. You read through the Psalms and there are people literally pouring out like their hearts and not like praising God, like very much saying, God, why
I'm
do I
feeling
feel
so bad?
Yes. And it always ends with just laying your burdens at like the feet of the Lord and saying, but I will praise you anyways.
Yeah.
And like Jesus told us this life is not going to be easy,
Exactly.
you know, and it's not supposed to be. And I look at the life of Jesus. I mean, Jesus was he knew that Lazarus was going to be raised from the dead, and yet he like cried. He like bawled his eyes out. He was devastated when Lazarus died, and like he knew he was going to die on the cross. He knew he would be resurrected, but here you have him in the Garden of Gethsemane saying, Lord, please, can there be another way? He's sweating blood. So like, can we question Jesus' faith? Like, yes, I know God is good. Yes, I know that like this life is temporary. I'm still going to feel those emotions.
Exactly.
It's not my denial of the fact that God is good.
Exactly.
And if anything, like being mentally ill, like my faith has been so important in my recovery. And I honestly, like, had it not been for the Lord, I don't think I would be here, because I've genuinely felt him with me every single step of the way. And like, it's the Lord's always given me perspective. Like, I've always been able to see beyond my condition, to see beyond things. I don't say I am bipolar. I say I have bipolar, and I am a child of God. I am Zara. I am not bipolar, you know? So like, if anything, my faith has just aided my help and just aided my recovery.
I think that the lack of speaking about mental illness and mental health is quite a big issue within the church, and
and in society
for sure. But I mean, just with like specifically within the church, I think it's a big problem that, like you said, it's like kind of associated that if you have a mental illness, you're not having enough faith. And that is such a widespread thought, and you'd think 21st century that should have gone away by now. It's still very much going on. And I think with those kinds of thoughts, you have to be very careful of going into that prosperity teaching, you know the idea that, oh, if you have faith in the Lord, then everything will be good. Like, that is so far from what the Bible teaches. And
pretty much most of the people in the Bible had really tough lives.
Tough lives. And like we said, these are things that are legitimately real. So I feel like that was a redundant thing, legitimately real.
That's how real they are.
But yeah, it also just comes down to a lack of understanding and often miseducation as well. Like, people often just spread around these things, these ideas that are just completely false, and that kind of just stays within the church, if you know what I mean. But I think it's really important that churches speak more about mental health, mental illness. These are not secular things. These are things that like exist. And yeah, once again, like, try not to think in binaries, you know? Like, you can be a Christian and have a mental illness.
Yes, you can.
And you can be a Christian and be on medication.
Yes.
Like, these things are not mutually exclusive.
And I by no, like, means think that God couldn't bring healing.
Yeah, absolutely not.
But
sometimes he just doesn't.
Always.
Yeah.
And, like, I've learned so much through my journey. And, like, you asked me in the last episode, we were speaking about just, like, regrets and stuff. And as hard as those like years were in high school and coming out of high school, I've learned so much, you know, that I wouldn't take it back.
Yeah. And that's a great place to be in.
Yes. And I really feel like it's brought me closer to the Lord more so than anything.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we're moving into like the faith aspect of our episode now.
Yeah.
But I think that is what is great about being a Christian, or even just having a belief in like a higher power or some kind of spirituality. But I mean, we are Christians, so we pretty much can only speak about Christianity. But it's just knowing that there is something bigger than you know. And I feel like once again, when you're in really dark spaces in your mind, it's difficult to just remember, oh, like God is bigger than I am. God has a plan for me. But once you kind of get to that point, like if you take medication, if you go to a therapist or speak to your pastor, I don't know what you do.
Yeah.
But then you can remember that again and live a happier, hopefully, life.
Yeah.
And I think it's also just great to know that you can rely on the Lord through everything. And I remember like when I was like towards the end of grade 8, and this was like almost a year since my lung collapsed, and I genuinely I don't know, it was almost like PTSD or something, but I would almost exactly a year after that I would get panic attacks quite regularly. Just thinking it's happening again or something was wrong with my lungs. Because every single time that like I struggled to breathe, if I exercise, I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Or if I had like a trapped wind in my chest, it would be the same thing again. And I just remember just sitting down with my Bible and like writing down all the verses that I could find about like, oh, trust in the Lord, it's fine, you'll be fine. And I think even if you're feeling terrible, you can still have that faith that like it'll be fine. It sucks, but it will be fine. Amen. What do you have to say?
Well, I think we pretty much covered just the idea of, if anything, like emotional struggles can bring you closer to the Lord. But this is completely like on another page. But something that I wanted to mention in this series somewhere is just, and I think this very much fits into this idea of just seeing the bigger picture, this is a quote from good old One Triel. Happiness is a mood, not a destination. And I think so many people see like life as like,
it's like searching for the next high,
and it's like, one day I'll be happy when I get this car, when I meet someone, when I get the job that I want. Whereas like happiness is the same as being tired or hungry or sad. Like these emotion. Are passing things. And I think if we felt our emotions and we allowed the days to be good, then we'd probably be happier, you know, in the day to day.
For sure. But I think you have to take things one day at a time.
100%.
Instead of thinking all the time like, oh, I'll be happier when ...
Exactly.
And I mean,
chances are you won't be.
And like I think when you're always worrying every single day, and it really takes away like just from your general joy. Because I think also it's important to know that joy and happiness are different things. Like joy, I think especially like if you speak to Christians, it's kind of like an everlasting
like
joy. And like you can be sad and still have
joy.
That joy at the same time.
It's kind of just like
knowing
this knowledge deep down that like everything is okay. And God is still good. And as I said earlier on, like Jesus felt his emotions. If Jesus could feel his emotions, so can we.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with it. So yeah, I think we all just need to stop. We all need to start crying more. And just feel what you're feeling, and it's fine. And like I was speaking to my cousin the other day, like sometimes you just gotta cry, and I think it should be normalized to cry in public. Like genuinely, because you know sometimes you just need to cry, and then you cry, and then it's better.
It's true. It's like a release of
it's a release, and then you can think clearly again, and it's fine. And there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
But take things a day at a time. Focus on the now. There's that verse in the Bible. It's like, do not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will worry about itself. And I love that.
Today's troubles are enough for today.
Exactly. Because they really are.
They really are. So I think that kind of closes off our mental health series. I hope that you've learned a lot. And I hope you just feel encouraged and you know that like you're allowed to feel bad, and if you have a mental illness, if you are really struggling, you can be okay. And you will be okay.
And don't feel bad about seeking help. It makes you a stronger person for it. And if you ever want to chat to us, pop us a DM.
Please do.
And also side note, if you have any ideas for episodes, pop us a DM, slide into the DMs. It's fine, we won't bite.
Wow. Yes. So
Yeah, I think that's all we have to say. And
Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, please follow us on Instagram at @inotherwords_podcast.
Yes, and subscribe to us on YouTube
and all the places you
and
listen to podcasts.
if you can rate us.
Yes, please rate us.
Yeah, I don't know how you rate podcasts. I don't know if you can do it on Spotify.
On some like platforms you
Okay,
can.
well please do. I would
basically
so much appreciate
we're just
it.
asking to just interact so that we can get our content out there. And yeah, ultimately we hope that you are starting to have conversations you maybe wouldn't have had otherwise.
Exactly.
Anyways, we love you so much.
So much.
And after this episode, next week we're having a bit of a break. We're calling a binge week.
Yes.
So all the episodes that you've missed,
you must go catch up.
You have an opportunity. Yeah, you don't have a choice. Danielle's telling you have to. Cool.
But yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.